Baseball in the Boroughs, presented by Verizon. All right, it's time for round one of the Subway Series between the Yankees and Mets starting Tuesday night at Citi Field. And it's a great time to take a look where both teams are right now and their future prospects. So let's do that with SNY MLB insider who covers the Yankees and Mets. The one and only Andy Martino joins me now. Andy, how's it going?
I'm good, Dexter. How are you?
I'm doing well. Andy, let's start with the Yankees because they've been struggling. They've lost 7 out of their last 10 games, while the Mets, they've been on fire in June, winning 9 of their last 11 games to get back into playoff contention. When you look at this Subway Series matchup, who needs round one of the Subway Series more? Is it the Bronx Bombers or is it the Amazons?
It's hard to say in the course of a long season, Dexter. At the moment, obviously, it would feel better for the Yankees to get out of that slump and get a couple wins for them. But really, they're in a much better position than the Mets, of course. They're either going to be in first or second place in the American League East at the end of this week. The Mets are bunched up, playing very well, bunched up in a large field for that wild card, for that final wild card spot in the National League. So while it may feel like the Yankees needed more psychologically, and there's something to that, standings-wise and playoff chances-wise, every game is more important to the Mets.
Every game important to the Mets right now as they try to make that push for the final wild card spot. But when you talk about the Yankees, Andy, you got to talk about Juan Soto. He's one of the hottest commodities in baseball right now. Do you think the Yankees will have a realistic chance of re-signing him, or will the Mets have a shot at luring him to Queens? Also, I got to ask you, how would a battle to acquire Soto impact the Mets and Yankees rivalry?
You know, I think it's obviously it's very hard to the Yankees letting Soto go anywhere else. Really, as perfect a fit as he's been, and as vocal as Hal Steinbrenner's been about wanting to keep him, being willing to talk to him in season, which is something the Yankees just don't do. And they won't sign him in season. Obviously, he's going to free agency, but just the messaging around this for the Yankees and the fact that he's been such a perfect Yankee for them, I just don't see how they can let him go to the Mets or anywhere else and stay in business. I mean, if he signs with the Mets, the Yankees should probably just close the gates and say, okay, we're done. So it's hard to envision. Mets will try, but he's a Yankee right now, and it's hard to see that changing.
Yeah, hard to see it, and Yankee fans would not be happy if he signed with the Mets, and, you know, the Mets fans would love to see him come here, but they also will not be happy if he stays with the Yankees. But we'll see how that all plays out. Speaking of the Mets, their owner, Steve Cohen, he's been known for his willingness to spend. When you look at where the Mets are at right now, 2 games below 500, you talked about their positioning in the wild card chase. Do you think we'll see both Cohen and David Stearns make any significant moves before the trade deadline to bolster the Mets roster?
Well, they have a couple weeks to really watch the team play, Dexter, and figure out where they're at. It wasn't long ago at all that it was, are they going to be sellers or not? And I suppose they could still go in that direction if the season goes poorly over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, right now, things are pointing up, and it's a team with enough talent on it where they should be able to hang in the wild card race. Doesn't feel like the kind of season where they would sell the farm to add to the roster just to make a playoff, to make a wild card spot. But this is a team that's trying to build a winning culture. They obviously need to be really careful about selling pieces like Luis Severino or Pete Alonso, who would have some value in the trade market when they're trying to win and they're trying to show their fans and their clubhouse that they're a serious franchise that's trying to turn the corner here. So I'm not sure if you'd see any significant additions, but right now it doesn't look like they're going to subtract necessarily, and that's a victory in itself considering where they were a few weeks ago.
Absolutely a victory with the turnaround that we've seen from the Mets in the month of June. Looking ahead with both clubs, Andy, which team do you think is better positioned to win more World Series titles? I'm going to give you a span of the next 15 years. Which team do you think is in a better position? Yeah, I'm going to give you 15 years. We're going long-term, long view here, right? And why? Who do you think? Because 5 years is too short. I just want to explain to the viewers. 5 years, a little short. I'm going to go a little bit longer. Just in the way the teams are set up. I'm going to go with 15 years. We could even do 10. But why do you think? Who do you think is better set up for the long term here?
Well, first of all, Dexter, you sent my mind to a dark place because I immediately thought what my age will be in 15 years at the end of this span.
I'm sorry.
So I'm going to do that to you, and I'm going to do that to all our viewers. Take a minute and think about how old you'll be in 15 years. Ooh, it's a terrible thought. Anyway, so thanks for that. You got to go with the Yankees because of their history and their resources and their culture that they have already established. But having said that, the Mets have a chance to upset that natural order, as the Red Sox did in 2004, launching into an era where the dynamic between the Yankees and Red Sox changed. Look, the Mets are in a good spot right now. They have a well-resourced and ambitious owner. They have great leadership in the dugout. There's been a lot of front office transition, but they hope that those transitions are ending now and that they're going to have stability in the front office. So I think the future is perennially bright for the Yankees and looking upward for the Mets. You'll notice that I dodged your question.
Yes.
But I guess
Yes,
you got to say the
that.
Yankees. You got to say the Yankees until the Mets prove otherwise. How about that?
You know what? I think that's fair, considering you brought in the history, and, the history does have a factor in how people will take an outlook into the future. And I know I gave a long-term 15 years, and you made me also think about how old I'll be in 15 years. So, yeah, I might shudder at that a little bit. But aging happens. We'll see if the Mets can turn it around their fortunes. But I understand you going with the history of the Yankees and not dodging my question. Yeah. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. Last thing for me, Andy.
One more thought, Dexter, before you end. I'm going to go even darker. The one thing that would be worse than being 15 years older would be not being 15 years older. Think about that.
That's fair. A little profound depth from Andy Martino here. I appreciate that. That is fair. You're right. Life is a blessing, and we hope to enjoy it in 15 years, right? Last thing for me, Andy. We know that the New York baseball fans, they're always pumped for this Subway Series. Given the high expectations for both teams, how do you think the outcome of this Subway Series could influence the fan base's outlook and the front office's decisions moving forward?
Front office decisions, I don't think any more than any other two games. They're paid to be rational and not overweight the emotion of a Subway Series or anything else. Fan outlook could be a little different because in the short term, at least, Mets fans are feeling good. Yankees fans are feeling worried. So a sweep on either side would only increase those feelings on both sides. And it's always magnified when it's Mets Yankees. So it would feel more important that way, emotionally, psychologically, to the fan base than two games against the Royals or the Tigers or what have you. But at the end of the day, standings-wise, it's only two games, and what happens to each team over the weekend, over the next week, will only impact the psychology of the fan base all over again. And that is, as we know, is how the season works. These emotional bursts happen, and then something else happens, and then there's another feeling for 6 months of a baseball season. That's the beauty of it.
That is the beauty of baseball, an emotional roller coaster for the fans sometimes that will continue at Citi Field on Tuesday as the Mets and Yankees round one of the Subway Series would go down. Andy Martino, SNY MLB insider, he will be there. Andy, I appreciate the time, and let's mark it on the calendar so that we do this again in 15 years. I hope we can make that happen.
Oh, boy. Can we get one of those apps that'll age us 15 years right now so we can predict how we'll look? Or is that too depressing, too?
I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to pass.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you, man.
Good talking to you, Dexter.